say nice things about your family and things. My mother's going to watch this, so just be nice. Anything fun happen with anybody today, or what'd you fix today, Stan?
Well, I've been messing around with the LibreOffice database,
Okay.
and it's still kind of awkward.
What's awkward about it?
Creating the input screens, the
Oh, forms?
forms, yeah.
Okay.
That's still kind of awkward. But if I get on a real good flow, it works quite well.
Are you trying to make forms for something particular, or?
I'm creating a database for the high school reunion tracking. 2 years from now, will be my 5th year high school reunion.
How big of a class is it?
Oh, about 140 or so.
So you're the youngest of your class, then?
Wow.
Yeah, he was only 5 years old when he graduated.
Yeah, something like that.
Did you do anything fun today?
Yes, I've been having a lot of fun.
What did you do today?
Well, I bought a load, they call them shields. It's a little thing you press it onto an Arduino board.
Yeah?
There's different ones. One of them has, it gives you an Ethernet capability.
Oh.
So I bought that a week or so ago, and I've just been having a ball with it.
Are you, so Arduino?
Our Arduino board now is a standalone little server. You can log into it. You can look at pictures that are on an SD card. Big files.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got some hyperlinks to other stuff.
So there's a lot of giggling going on and going, yay, whenever things work.
Actually, I can turn on and off different pins on the Arduino board remotely.
There you go.
It beeps for me. If someone goes to a certain page, I've got a little beep function built into it. You have my ball. And
You're going to come and do a talk about this then?
Of course.
I may be able to someday.
Someday?
I want to play with just a little bit more, spruce it up a little.
We'll write that for January.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't.
Always keep a talk in your back pocket. I got asked to do one next week because somebody was sick. So.
Well, when I first started playing with this, I was so excited. I couldn't go to that meeting with Gray Water.
Okay.
And I thought, I'll just watch it on Google. And I went to the
Yeah, and Don had it set up on Google Hangouts and broadcast on YouTube.
And I was always getting the screen that said the show's going to start. And I never got in for it. So it was.
Did you record the Gray Bar?
Well, yes, I did record it. I didn't have the Hangout equipment you had.
Oh, well, okay.
All
Did you
I
upload it?
screen.
I haven't uploaded. I have it ready to upload.
Well, I
Okay.
was expecting to watch it live. I
Oh,
was so excited.
I was a little under the weather, and I had to stay near a bathroom. So
I need to hear
Gray
that.
Bar
Yeah.
really wasn't an option.
Okay. No, I heard you weren't there, and I assumed that was what the problem was.
Ebola? Ebola? I have not contracted Ebola. I have not traveled. However, some of our politicians are thinking about discussing a travel ban to certain cities in the U.S. They finally realized that the death count in Africa is hit about 10,000. And they kind of realize that it is kind of a serious issue.
of course, cutting the budget for it then is a high priority.
No, they're not going to put any money into it. They're just going to stop
I'm
travel.
saying they've reduced the amount of money.
Supposedly Nigeria has beat it.
Yes.
There's no
No
they
cases
didn't
in
beat it
Nigeria.
in a good way.
No, it was a long term.
And Firestone.
People they suspected. No.
Yeah, anyone that was suspected was thrown in the same room.
No,
Well,
no, Nigeria actually.
What the news reported, what really happened was kind of different.
Oh, okay. How about Firestone? What did they say about that?
Firestone, which one's
There's a Firestone town, 80,000 people in Liberia, and they say they have not lost any healthcare workers, and the only people who've contracted it are people who came from outside.
The Firestone people had may have been an advantage, already having people who were trained in hazardous material emergencies.
And lots of rubber stuff.
And a PR department.
But lots of rubber stuff
That's
too.
it.
I'm sorry for being cynical, but
You
history
never know
repeats
how
itself.
much, you never know how much is true.
So other than deadly Ebola, anything else fun happening today, this week?
Well, I
Any of
have
you
a
guys
question.
want to pre-order your new Apple devices or your new Nexus devices?
We still don't have a Surgeon General.
Let's-
People are calling for an Ebola czar, but
This is not Russia.
this is
We
what
don't need czars.
I have a question.
You have a question? I've got an
Oh.
answer. The answer is 7. Which
We
is
all
what-
have answers. I thought it was 42.
I'd probably like a different answer. My question is, if you have, for example, like a Debian system running in VirtualBox,
Mhm.
what's the procedure that you would use if you wanted to boot into that virtual machine from a different media? Is it as simple as just having like a CD in the host machine and during the boot process and that one?
That sounds like the right path. I do not use VirtualBox.
What was the question?
I'm sorry.
Can you boot from an alternate media in VirtualBox for an existing VM?
I have my VMs on an external drive.
Okay, so I've got a VM and it's got a virtual, a disk associated with it.
Right.
I want to boot that VM, but not from that disk. I want to boot it from, like, say, a live CD, so that I can do stuff to that disk drive.
That's a very good question. I've been thinking about doing the same thing myself because I had a VM system that wouldn't boot, and I wanted to try and use System Rescue to see if I can. System Rescue allows you to boot other hard drives, so possibly you could do it with something like System Rescue. It's
All right, so I guess, when one of us gets it to work, we'll let the other one know.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so I do know that in other environments that, Virt Manager, KVM, everything, you can just throw in another disk live and do your boot. Services like Linode and everything actually offer their own live boot, redo your partitions, format, expand your stuff.
Right, I mean, in this case, I have a particular virtual machine which is of interest.
Now, I may be wrong, but I think that disk, that file is actually a disk image.
Yes.
So you can mount it from your base machine and do anything you want to it.
Yeah. I have all my virtual machines on an external drive. Well, not all of them, most of my virtual machines.
Oh, so you think that I might be able to modify
Just modify the virtual machine to point to that image on the external drive, or create a virtual machine that points to that image. That would probably be.
Yeah, the sky's the limit. So
The terminology is different from what we're used to.
You can mount that disk from any other machine that's running on that box.
And Lee
what
has,
exactly do you
Lee has
want?
arrived at the airport, so I'm going to go pick him up. So I started my recorder.
Okay, so what exactly are you trying to do to this image? Or you just want to
I want
reformat
to
it?
change the root password.
You want to change? Oh, reset the root password?
Yes.
Yeah, you can probably. It'd be faster with an ISO. Get like Tom's root boot or whatever. Add it in as a CD device, and then set the. Does it have C BIOS, or how does it do its BIOS?
What
Can
is
you
it,
download-
is it-
can you
is it a
download-
Windows VM or what?
He said
Well,
it's a
the
Debian.
server it's currently running on is a Windows system,
Yeah.
but the client is a Debian client.
Okay.
So I've, launched VirtualBox, pointed at the OVA file, imported it, boots it, it comes up and runs.
So you can't do Linux single and go to single user mode and reset?
That maybe,
Okay.
I'll have to try
I
that.
disable it on servers when I set them up, but yeah, it's a nice way to reset root. So just Linux single on the grub command line, which is kind of fun to type on.
I mean, I'm aware of that, I'm aware of that approach, but haven't tried to carry it out yet. But the other alternative seemed to be, well, if I could boot from a live CD,
Mhm.
while that, device was out there.
Yeah, it sounds perfectly normal to me. I mean,
All
if
right.
I tried to do any virtualization, that's always an option for me. So,
All right.
sounds pretty normal.
I'm looking at VirtualBox sites. I really don't see anything about booting from another disk or disk image. I would think that probably, if nothing else, you could tell it to show the BIOS when you power it up, and then BIOS should give you, because there has to be
I believe it's C
an
BIOS.
Intel BIOS or a PC compatible BIOS to kick
Right.
off the OS. So if you boot into that, it should give you a choice of what to boot off of.
Sure. All right. Thank you.
I think it's C as in Ocean Sea, SEA. So, yeah, and it's going to be F1 on that C BIOS.
All right. Well, I'll give it a shot. Unless, of course, by tomorrow, someone lets me know that, no, we're not interested in going down that direction after all. But,
Is the
research
password?
project, so
Yeah.
that's always a possibility.
Now that Gary's arrived, I think we can.
Finish that there.
Okay, Super Ken, can you bring the calendar back up, please? So let's see what we got here. For us today is you scroll us down there. We're down there below the fold as it is. Yay! So what do we got here? We got. There we go. What was the snug meeting about?
Converting Solaris to SUSE.
What's SUSE's new name?
Has a new name?
Yeah, what are they going to rename it to?
I don't know. Is it supposed to be a new name? I didn't know.
The operating system previously known as SUSE.
Is it going to be an unpronounceable symbol now?
Okay, so next Thursday is the DevOps STL. I've been asked to speak there, so I'll be talking. And I think somewhere we have a Stan meeting coming up very soon. Hazelwood Lug on the 28th. If you guys want to come and support Stan, if he's there or not, you can still support him.
It's starting to look like I'm not going to Colorado this month.
Why are you going to Colorado?
Elk season.
Elk season.
My oldest brother lives in Vail,
Okay.
and usually we go out there and shoot meat.
You shoot
Elk.
Yep.
Tastes like chicken?
Much better than chicken. Much better than chicken.
Apparently you've ate some interesting chicken.
Right now, there are a whole bunch of elks who traveled down to Colorado. We were sitting around going, yeah, there's two guys from Missouri. Wow.
So other than our SSL fun this week, any other nerdy news?
Yeah, St. Louis is starting up a C++ group again.
I don't know how to
Yeah.
respond to that.
Their first meeting's November 5th.
I think I've already got that on the calendar.
It'll be in next month.
By the way, happy birthday yesterday to Fortran. Happy birthday tomorrow to Pearl.
That's the day. It's not on there.
There it is.
Yes, STLC C++. Is it C and C++?
Just C++.
No,
Uh-oh.
it's the thing I read is C/C++.
Oh, okay.
We can edit it.
Wednesday, yes.
But thank you very much, Super Ken, for driving. And without any further ado, I think we'll give Mr. Super Ken a start on his wonderful presentation, and I want you guys to applaud his design of a front page to his presentation, because I think it's extremely well done. Well, you have to get
That's
there
not
first.
the front page. That's just a wrench.
Okay.
That's
There's
the front page.
Oh.
There we go.
So I'm going to talk about the do-it-yourself approach to small mail servers. Do-it-yourself meaning that you're not hiring it out, and small meaning, well, let's put it this way. If you have someone who's completely dedicated just to the mail server and that's their whole job, that's not it. If you have an IP address which is solely dedicated to this mail server, that's probably not it. And with that in mind, let's see, where is it? Oh, there it is. So I will give you some helpful hints for running a personal or small business mail server based on my experience. Your experiences, of course, may differ. And now you see why I have a new, desk. I got it, new desktop art, to go with this. So I work as an independent consultant. I keep things running for people, and I create specialized technical documentation. And one of the things that I keep running is a mail server for a client. It runs on Debian. It uses XM4, UW IMAP, Spam Assassin, Failed Loop Fan, IPset, and IP tables. The last three are my fault. XM4 and UW IMAP, I think, because those were Debian defaults at the time that the guy who set it up. And I haven't changed it because I haven't perceived that was going to save me so much time that I could justify that effort. Also, my house is heated by steam, and I have a fairly good sized collection of pipe wrenches which I know how to use. So if you're going to be a mail server admin, there's basically two important aspects to your job. You're trying to ensure the selective delivery of outgoing mail, and you're trying to ensure the intact receipt of desired incoming mail. That desired word is pretty important because there's a lot of stuff that will show up at your mail server that you don't want. So this is a roadmap for the presentation. The first big topic that we'll cover after some more introductory material is that spam rules your world. And we'll talk about why that is and how that is. But from the point of view of doing this, dealing with spam one way or another is the thing that takes up most of my ongoing effort. So we talked about the two main jobs you're going to have as a mail server admin: assuring delivery of outgoing mail, or don't look like a spammer. That seems to be the main key in making sure that your user's mail gets where it wants to go to. The next thing is keeping inboxes clean. That goes along with the second job I mentioned. We're going to talk a little bit about some email client issues because those bear on the previous two topics. And finally, we're going to talk some alternatives because after you've heard about all of this, you may decide, I don't want to do that. And that's not necessarily an unreasonable point of view. As a matter of fact, the guy who set up the server that I maintain recommended that they hire it out. His recommendation was declined. They told him set it up. He saluted and set it up. So in our introductory material, we've got some some definitions, and we're going to talk about sort of, some general things that we'll refer to later. A mail transfer agent is the component that uses the simple mail transfer protocol to move mail to the destined MTA, or if it's your mail transfer agent, it would also receive mail using the same protocol for local delivery. I've listed some examples. There's XM, there's SendMail, there's QMail, there's Postfix. There's more. And I'm not in a position to recommend which one you should use because I haven't used all of these, or even a large number. So picking one probably should depend on what's well supported on the platform that you're using. What can you learn about it in terms of what it takes to set it up? Are there, good and complete sources of information about it? If you're writing XM4, there's this book written by the guy who's the architect and original implementer. And this material is available online as well. But there is a lot of documentation if referring to that kind of stuff is helpful to you. The mail delivery agent typically uses POP or IMAP to get received mail to the recipient. So it arrives at your MTA. It's queued there, and then something needs to get it from there. The person's actually going to read it, and that's usually the mail delivery agent, usually using POP or IMAP between itself and your mail client. And here's some more examples of that. And I use UW IMAP because
University of Washington's the best.
That's no longer clear to me, but it is, what was set up when this thing was set up. The mail user agent is your mail client. So it uses SMTP to send mail to your local MTA. It uses POP or IMAP to fetch mail from the MDA. Your client, has to know about a lot of different stuff. And some examples of that are Outlook and Thunderbird, and those tend to, like live on your personal PC. There's Squirrel Mail, which is a web client that you can set up for people to access their mail over the web, your mail server. And there's Gmail, which, among other things, can be set up to use IMAP to, fetch mail from some email account that you have. It's kind of an atypical email client, but it can be one. So it's good to keep that in mind when you're getting yourself put together. So this is the road we're not going to take tonight. We're not going to talk about choosing or configuring an MTA. We're not going to talk about choosing or configuring an MDA. And we're not going to talk very much about configuring an MUA. There'll be some small exceptions to that, but for the most part, that's not what I'm going to cover. So you might be wondering, well, what's left? Well, there's some stuff. So we'll talk about what spam is. It's email that you and others don't want to receive. And so we've got some examples. People trying to sell you stuff. The infamous 419 emails, which is a reference to the criminal code of Nigeria. That's the fraud section. Phishing typically are attempts to try to steal passwords to your bank account or your stock brokerage account or your retirement account or your credit card, anything that would then let them access money. And there's more. There's botnet recruitment, always a great one. There's extortion, like ransomware. CryptoLocker is the recent sort of well-known example of that, affecting Windows systems. And it steals your time. So we've talked about what spam is and some of the nasty things it does. Why is it that it rules your world if you're a small mail server admin? So we'll get to some numbers. On the server that I administer, at least 90% of the sending IP addresses, that is IP addresses contacting my MTA, which in my case is Exum, are hostile. I can't actually make this count via number of mail attempts because of one of the techniques that I use actually blocks many of those attempts at the IP tables level once I discover that a particular IP address is hostile. So that IP address might try to send me one bad email. It might try to send me 10. But after the first one, I've just cut off that IP address and I don't know about the remaining 9. I can't count those. But I can count the number of IP addresses, and the ratio isn't good. So if you think about this from the point of view of not your small mail server where the overall bandwidth and storage and CPU requirements are small, but from the point of a large company or a service provider, the bandwidth, the disk space, the CPU requirements, the air conditioning, the rack space, because of spam, can easily needs to be 10 times larger than they would otherwise be. You're almost talking about real money. Okay, and real money tends to get people excited. So spam can do direct damage to you. It will steal your users' time and annoy them. They can suffer financial loss from phishing. Their computers can be recruited to be members of bots. Their data can be lost. You or someone else may need to spend their time restoring compromised systems. But there's also collateral damage, and this is where it starts to become really pretty important if you're trying to ensure that you get the mail you want to receive, and especially that you get delivered the mail that you want to send. Because spam will cost and annoy large providers and companies so much that they're willing to do almost anything to stop it. And if you get caught in their defenses, well, the cost to them is probably small. They probably don't even notice. And it's certainly hard for them to predict. On the other hand, the cost of this incoming deluge is large, predictable, and it's in their face every day. So given that set of circumstances, who's going to win? You know, what path are they going to choose? Are they going to choose to try to control the resources and the time and the money that they have to spend on this stuff? Or are they going to go out of the way to make sure that the one email that that one of your users wanted to send last month actually reaches one of their customers? And the answer is actually pretty obvious. Your user's email is not going to get through. So, one of the things that this says, which is a bit indirect, is that if you're someone who doesn't work well in an environment where there are a lot of external constraints put upon you and the actions that you have to take. If you want to be if you're the kind of person who wants to be able to, sort of make your own rules and do things the way you want to. Like I knew some guys who were software developers who were kind of like that in the sense that given the the destination they were supposed to reach, they had a lot of control over how they got there. If you're a mail server administrator, you're not going to have that. This may say something to you about whether or not you want to take this on. So what are the things that you need to do so that your clients and your IP address and your domain name doesn't look like a spammer. So, well, you need to do the right things. You need to not do the wrong things. Nice generalizations. It's that second paragraph that becomes more important. You need to keep in mind and remember that right and wrong in this situation are not up to you. They're determined by Spamhaus, and by Barracuda, and by Google, and by the mail server administrators, where these mail servers are used by your friends and your customers and your suppliers, all the people that you want your users to be able to send mail to and receive mail from. Those are the people who make the rules, not you. You're going to have to deal with that. You know, you may go read the SMTP RFC, and you might decide, you know what? The test that they're imposing isn't in the RFC. Oh, well, not going to help. You can argue that all day and all night, but the people who run those systems, make those decisions based on solving the problems that they have, not on solving your problem, and it's not going to do any good.
Blocks are for honest people. RFCs are for honest people.
Yeah. So let's talk about what some of the right things are. You want to have a reverse IP lookup that matches your MX record, or at least the domain name matches. There's a lot of argument about whether or not that's in the RFC. It doesn't matter. When you need to send some email to someone and it bounces back and says, your reverse IP, doesn't match. They're not going to change it because you call them up or email them. Well, you're not going to be able to email them to complain, of course. So you need to do that. If you're not in a position to get the reverse IP lookup for the system where you're going to have this mail server running changed, maybe you need to think about another solution. It's probably a good idea to use SPF records. The sender policy framework is defined in that RFC 7208. Yeah. It's a tool meant to combat forged email headers. It's basically a way for someone to establish, are you who you say you are? SPF records are defined for domains, like, for example, say google.com. I'm not sure if Google actually uses them, but the server that I administer has them. And you can query those records to find out what the allowed email sender systems are for that domain. So if somebody receives an email that says, well, I'm from example.com. Well, it's possible to look and see if example.com has an SPF record. And if it does, to see, oh, is this one of the systems that's listed in that record? And if it is, yeah, it probably is from or from example.com. And if it's not, it's not. So I can throw it on the floor. So, it's a tool for combating forged email headers. Setting it up is not that difficult, assuming, of course, that you have control over the DNS records for the domain that you're setting up the email server for. If you don't have that control, you shouldn't be in this business anyway. And then it gets harder. You need to prevent the wrong things from happening too. So you need to require encrypted access to send and receive mail from your server, because this prevents people from doing easy password stealing from road warriors. This isn't end-to-end encryption of the mail. This is just between your person who's out on the road and your mail server. But it needs to be encrypted so that when their password comes across, somebody can't just easily grab that with a sniffer. This requires that you have an SSL certificate. And you probably want a real one, not one you generate yourself, in case one of the people you're providing email services for wants to use Google as their email client, because a year and a half or 2 years ago, Google stopped accepting self-signed certificates for that purpose. It's got to be a certificate signed by a certificate authority. And I can tell you by experience that successful password thieves will use your mail server to send spam. They may have some other things in mind too, but they will do that. So another thing that you need to do is you need to protect your mail server from brute force attacks. Let's see. Which one is that? On the 4th of October, my IP tables filters dropped 625 packets inbound to my mail server from IP addresses that were attempting brute force attacks on my mail server. When I say brute force, in this particular case, they were actually, they're just trying brute force on the passwords. They had a list of real users. That was a light day. Yesterday it was 1,350 packets, which, there's probably some amount of retry there. You probably have to divide that by some number, but still, somebody out there is hopefully persisting. So, fail to ban can pretty much stop these people, because if you're using fail to ban, they get 1 or 2 tries and then they get turned off for 12 hours. We had a session on using fail to ban early this year. And dare I say, someday you'll be able to download the session notes from the website. But what fail to ban does is to monitor the log files on your system, and it lets you define what it refers to as filters and jails, which is essentially the specification of watch this log file for this particular regular expression pattern. If you find it this many times in that many minutes, block that IP address for the next so many seconds. But realistically, you're almost thinking in terms of hours. So you can pick that to be an hour or 2 hours or 12 hours. What I typically do is, when it's really, really clear that they're hostile, I make it something like 12 hours. When there's a faint possibility that they're not, I make it 1 or 2 hours. And fail to ban, definitely puts a crimp in what these folks can do. Previously I could see hundreds of attempts, in a day, which actually got to the point of, hitting the mail server and having it fail to log in. Now that number, is in the tens. And why do you need to do this? Once again, because successful password crackers will use your mail server to send spam. That will put you on block lists, and then you won't get your outgoing mail delivered. So there's a tool called Spam Assassin that can be used to basically sort and rate incoming mail. Use it on your outgoing mail too. Think of this as part of a belt and suspenders approach. If there's somebody on the inside who's using the mail, who's trying to use the mail server that you administer to send spam, either because they're actually trying to send spam or because they're, a disgruntled employee and they want to, create trouble for you, or there's a compromised PC, or there have been stolen passwords on your mail server. All these are reasons why you might want to use Spam Assassin on outgoing mail as well as on incoming mail. So here's a small network. We've got some PCs, got your mail server, we've got a network address translation router, and out here's the internet. Okay? This is the kind of environment that I'm taking care of for a client. And having this in mind, this is pretty important for a couple of reasons. A compromised PC behind the same NAT router as your email server is a big bunch of trouble. It can send spam directly, not even going through your mail server, just sending it out. It can steal the email addresses of your users, which will contribute to sending spam to them. It will contribute to people trying to break into your email server. You can steal the passwords of the user on the system that's been compromised, because a lot of people have, the password to the email server, tucked away in Outlook or whatever it is. And if Outlook's got it, software running on that PC can get it. That last address, that's the address that you use to go find out if an IP address, your IP address is on any of the block lists at Spam House. You'll be needing that when PCs behind your router get compromised. But there's more. In addition to sending spam directly, you can send spam through your email server. And this is, I think comparatively new. It can talk, that compromised PC can talk to a captured botnet command and control node. So what does that mean? That means that even if no actual spam has left your IP address, you can end up having your IP address on the Spam House block lists because they have detected that there's a compromised PC at the same IP address as your mail server, and you'll be blocked. You don't need to send spam to get on those block lists. You just have to have something at that IP address behaving badly.
Getting rid of Windows XP seemed to be the the best, most effective measure we found on one of our networks, because the XP was much more susceptible to botnet capture than the later versions.
Maybe when this hit me, it was a Windows 7 Pro system.
Oh, great.
Up to date. So this means that you thought you had this nice clean job as a mail server administrator on a Linux box. But there's all this other stuff that you need to have happen in order to make that work in this small environment. You need to enforce PC hygiene, and these are some issues. These are some things that I recommend. And the first one I've actually gotten in place. Use data execution prevention. Enable it for all programs in Windows. Now, that's not the default, but you should do that.
What is that?
That's an extremely good question. We'll talk about that right now. Many of the compromises to Windows systems take place because someone manages to take advantage of a bug in some software to get a bunch of data pushed onto the stack of a program, and also push on a return address which is on the stack, And then when the program does a return from the existing subroutine, it's off executing the code put there by the hostile entity.
I've never heard it described as data execution prevention before.
Well, okay, but what data execution prevention is to take advantage of features that are in the more modern Intel or AMD processors, which allow you to say, you can't execute off the stack. You can't execute out of data areas. You need to execute out of code regions. And so if a program tries to do that, it will take a fatal fault. And then the OS will clean it up. This is a feature, well, do you already have any exposure to VMS?
Mhm.
You know, in the, years and years ago, this was in VMS in 1979. Controlled, different, having different regions for different aspects. You had your code region, you had your data region, you had your stack region. You couldn't execute off the stack, you couldn't execute out of data. If you were executing, you need to be executing code. So if you prevent people from basically being able to run their own code, it's a lot harder for them to take over your PC. And that's what data execution prevention does. By default, in Windows XP and in Windows 7, it's only enabled for Microsoft Windows programs, that is, programs that are part of Windows itself. But you can turn it on for everything, and I highly recommend that you do so. I'm sure there are a few things out there that it doesn't get along with very well, but the number is pretty low. Does that explain it? Or do I need to step back and go at it again in a different approach?
Is that some setting in the, I forget what they call it?
The registry?
Not necessarily the registry, but in the.
It's under computer properties, advanced performance. I'm not sure why it's under performance, but there it is.
Okay.
And then it's data execution prevention.
All right, I know where to go find that.
I mean, if you search for Windows data execution prevention, and if you Google for that, you will get useful pages. Not all processors have that. This doesn't. Okay.
Depends on the chip.
It depends on the chip. This is this is an Atom. Some of the Celerons probably don't have it. Older processors don't have it. Personally, I couldn't recommend somebody buying a PC that has a processor that doesn't have it if they're going to run Windows.
If they're gonna
I
run.
think Pentium 4, anything above a Pentium 4 or higher has that.
Mobile processors don't.
Mobile processors don't? Okay.
And so I think even some of the recent Celerons don't.
No.
And power.
Yeah. The Core 2 Duos, that stuff, you're fine. Xeons,
It's coming.
you're fine. But the cheap processors, probably not. I think AMD may have done better at putting it into its cheaper processors than Intel has. They call it something else. There's a slightly different name that AMD uses it for it versus Intel, but it does the same thing.
Wikipedia's got a page on
Yeah. So I recommend the use of ad block and flash block, and script block's not a bad thing either, although in my experience, it's more of a hassle to use. I seem to need to go turn things on more often. Ad block and flash block, that doesn't bother me. Ad block and flash block basically tend to block the display of advertisements and flash in your browser unless you go turn them on. And the reason for that is that it's not uncommon for flash video or for advertisements be used as vectors for delivery. And so if you're not only watching stuff you actually intend to watch and only looking at stuff you intend to look at, you're less likely to get in trouble. Use non-privileged accounts. In an office full of programmers that are accustomed to, grabbing new stuff and trying it out whenever they want to, that is a harder sell. But certainly on my own systems, I do that. Like the system, the account I always log into is not a privileged account. That doesn't prevent malware from getting onto one of those systems, but my experience has been that when that happens, when somebody's running a non-privileged account, it usually doesn't get its claws in nearly so deep, and it's easier to clean up. That's, if they find the right exploit for Windows, that won't necessarily be true, but for a lot of things that does seem to be true, and if it's a faster cleanup job, life is simpler. Teach people not to open mail from strangers. I suppose it's probably a good idea to use some sort of antivirus, although at this point I think most of the serious bad guys have a test suite. They've got all the major and most of the minor antivirus pieces of software available, and before they send something out, they run it past all of those. Keep updated. And obviously this has nothing directly to do with running your own mail server. It's just that it does have a lot to do with whether or not you can get the mail that you want to send out actually delivered in a small environment. So here are some other things that you can do. Use some packet filters on your router. Only allow your mail server to send on port 25. So even if you do get a corrupted PC and it's trying to send out spam directly, it gets dropped at your router. I did that, several years ago. So when just comparatively recently we wound up on one of the spam house lists, the first thing I thought of was, well, did something happen to my filters? It was like, I thought I'd solved this problem. And then, additional research showed that, oh, no, it's more complicated than you thought. You don't have to send spam to get on their lists. So some other packet filters. Sometimes, though not always, malware uses the DNS protocol using a DNS server, of its own choosing. Basically, it's part of the command and control system for that botnet to do, data lookup and retrieval. So you might consider blocking DNS lookups except to your designated DNS servers. And if the people behind your router are accessing external DNS servers, pick a few. Those are the ones they're allowed to use.
Like OpenDNS, Google DNS, and
whatever the right ones are for your environment, and you don't let them access anything else. Maybe you're considering the possibility of running a listserv through your mail server. If you're going to do that, make sure that you're requiring confirmed sign-up. Make sure that unsubscribing is very easy.
It has to be extremely very easily, because people that don't understand how to unsubscribe report you as a spammer.
Another side of that is people have been signing me up for lists, not realizing that my email address is not them. And some of these lists are somewhat hard to unsubscribe from.
Right.
Poorly designed.
You need to set it up so that you process rejects as unsubscribe requests. So and I don't actually know how you do that. But that's what you want to do. In other words, if you try to send to a server and it says back, I don't know who that is.
Mhm.
You know, that's not an address. You know, that's not a user that I have. You need to turn that into they're unsubscribed.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about why that is when we get to the next section about dealing with spam. The best idea is to get somebody else to do it. Get it on some other IP address, not on your server's IP address, on your mail server's IP address.
Just have your mailing list on a separate address from your mail.
Yeah, farm it out. You know, get some company to do it for you, or get it somewhere else.
One on that topic, in the ISPs and the large web servers environments, they'll always have segmentations of networks so that you can have the mail server on 2 separate segments, so that even if they are put on the list, they can just basically use the other segment and live. Same thing with DNS. You always have your DNS on 2 network segments, never on the same subnet. So it helps if you have a couple million addresses to play with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
With IPv6, we'll all have a couple million addresses to play with, won't we?
So, having gone through a long list of things to help you avoid looking like a spammer, we'll now talk about the opposite problem. How do you keep your inboxes clean?
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Is there a limitation on how many addresses you can send an email to on different systems?
Mm-hmm.
How big is it?
The list? How big? How many
I want
recipients?
to send the same email to 300 people. Is that a problem?
No. Around 1,000 mark, some mail servers will stop respecting it.
Yes, but before you hit that,
You're going to get a black eye.
you're probably going to get a black eye because there will be people who will see that email and decide, this probably just can't be good.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to deliver these.
So Google flags it around like 100 or something.
And sometimes the recipient has a filter that will do that automatically, don't they?
So yeah, that's a problem.
So
You want to break those. You probably want to find a way to break that into tens.
So yeah, in the servers, there's probably I know there's configuration option in XM and postfix of basically maximum number of recipients, outbound and inbound. And you can literally change this little one line in the config, and it controls whether you drop that email or not. So, but according to RFC, the number's huge, massive.
Right. But remember, arguing about whether it's in the RFC or not with somebody who's running a mail server, you're never going to win.
I understand that, but what number should I shoot at? 10?
I would like 10, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do that, but I'll figure it out.
Well, you can label them as BCC, and when they become BCC, then the other senders are not included on the recipient email that goes outbound.
Oh, well, I send it all BCC anyway.
Then you're fine.
Cool.
And there is no 300.
Even though I may say 300 is set into Gmail, something or other. Different email addresses. No problem. Okay. I'll never reach that level, but interesting.
So as far as keeping inboxes clean, the approach that I've taken pretty reasonably successfully is to use Spam Assassin and to use Fail to Ban. And they seem to be most powerful when they're working together.
What do you mean by keeping the inbox clean?
We're reducing the amount of unwanted mail that shows up in my users' inboxes.
You're not talking about somebody that stores their entire life on the email system.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not a problem that I worry about.
That's tidy.
You know, what I'm talking about is, you know, all the different kinds of spam that we went over, you know, over earlier in the day, keeping that down to a dull roar. You know, if it's maybe three or four a day, that seems to be manageable. If it's like, you know, 16 or 20 a day, they're not so happy. So typically Spam Assassin, if you're using, you know, one of the major Linux distributions, then Spam Assassin is probably just available as a package you can install, and it will have probably a fairly reasonable set of defaults, and that's a good start. Okay, and Failed to Ban is available. It's probably going to take more configuration to start with, because you're going to need to go and look at the filters in the jails and make sure that the filters that it has for the log files actually match the configuration of the log file on your system. You know, it's not an insurmountable problem. You know, if you go look at them, you'll see, oh, well, yes, they're like that, except that these two aspects are in a different order. So you take the sample they give you and you swap those things around and then you get a match. But there will be some work to do, and it's going to depend on the particular distribution you pick and the particular mail server software you pick, because those are both things that are going to influence the exact format of your log file, and of course the name of the log file too. So in addition to those two, you can use IPset and IP tables if you can or should block particular geographic areas or areas where the rule of law is weak. And I suggest worldjusticeproject.org if you want to be able to say that, oh, well, here, I use this list. If that will be helpful to you, and for some reason, that's the place you could go. They provide assessments of the strength of the rule of law. In my particular case, I have a client who should probably never ever be doing any business with the Russian Federation or with the People's Republic of China. So, you know, once a month or so, I dig up an updated list of IP addresses in those areas and update the block list. So let's see. Yesterday was a busy day. We dropped 2,000 packets from the PRC and the Russian Federation combined. Don't know what kind of packets they were because I don't distinguish. In those cases, I dropped everything. I mean, they could have been trying to do SSH into my machine. I can't tell you. So you've probably heard about IP tables. IP tables lets you create pretty sophisticated filters on incoming and outgoing network packets. IPset is a little tool that goes with that. What IPset does basically is to let you have a really long list of networks, where a network can be a single IP address or big bunches of IP addresses, 8 bits, 12 bits, 16 bits, whatever. And as I understand it, what it basically does is create a hash table. And so it means that you get comparatively very efficient lookups on this very large set of network addresses that you're trying to block. So IPset is basically a thing that works with IP tables to make it faster, smarter, and better. So what I do is I have one filter. If you look at my IP tables listing, it's actually fairly short. There's one filter that's just associated with all of the IP addresses in the Russian Federation, because I created an IP set, which is, as I said, it's essentially this make a hash table of all those network addresses. And then I say, drop all those. You know, I don't care what port they're on, I don't care what port, you know, what protocol they are, drop them.
I'd say a third of the spam I get is from South Africa, .ca. Which of
Oh,
those,
it's okay to block Uganda and all of South Africa.
West Africa.
which of these tools do I use to do that with?
Well, none of them. Well, none of these things that I've talked about directly, because these tools are working off of IP addresses, not off of domain names. And you might or might not.
Oh, I definitely would like to block South Africa. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's fine.
I can actually help this. So in Chile, we had /19 and /20 for our web hosting. So we had some pretty sizable networks just for web hosting. And one of our networks was 200, 224, 24. That was one of the networks. And so a lot of companies were blocking 200 prefix because they thought it was bad. And that's fine if they're blocking a South American country, that's fine. But then I had to point out to them that 200 is being used by Roadrunner in the US. So just because a network begins with the first two octets, you know, the 200, 224, for example, just because those begin there, that doesn't mean they're all within the country. So you could accidentally, when blocking Africa, block France or something else.
Oh, that,
So you have to be careful about that.
I don't want to do it by IP number. I want to do it by the
Right,
domain.
and that's where you can blacklist in the spam, in your email program.
Yeah.
You can actually blacklist by *.br, gr, whatever domain you want to block. But that doesn't guarantee that somebody in that country is not using a .com, a .net, or .org.
But they can still have the same domain name as a different IP number.
So doing countries is very difficult. Very difficult.
Right. You know, clearly, I'm dropping, you know, a fair amount of stuff that I don't want. But it's not the only way to do it. What I've tended to shy away from blocking by domain name because for the most part, I haven't had, like, say, .sa as an obvious thing to block, you know, like a particular country. And more specific domain names than that are so transient that it's worthless. So let's talk about the email user lifecycle that you probably want to be using. And it'll become apparent how this fits in. So your typical state for the user is current. They can send and receive email using your server. At some point, that user is no longer on your server, and depending upon the environment, though, it may be that you want to forward email that comes to that user's address someplace else. So that's typically the first stage after you leave current. The stage after that happens when you decided, okay, you forwarded for long enough. Long enough is up to you. And then you typically start rejecting. And that tells people that, you know what, it's time we need to stop sending email to this location. Following that, you will move to black holing that user and making that username into a spam trap. At this point, if someone is sending email to that user address, it's probably not somebody that you want to be talking to. It's probably not well-intentioned, so you can treat it like spam. So that's your user lifecycle. Current, forwarding the email, rejecting the email, black holing it, so you just take it, ditch it, and treat it as spam. You should skip the first 3 steps for at least 2 usernames. You should have a couple of usernames. One preferably, I would say, like beginning with A, and one near the end of the alphabet, beginning with W. Because it turns out that spammers often seem to don't work in alphabetical order. Or maybe reverse alphabetical order if they're trying to be clever. Now, some of them work randomly. I've seen that too. But you know what? If they're working in alphabetical order, use that to your advantage. When they get that first one, you block their IP address and you don't get any of the rest of it. Or when they get that last one, you block their IP address, you don't get any of the rest of it.
You can actually download these lists of standard users from the same place that the spammers get them. And you can validate your list too. So.
And you know, what I've done is I created a couple of plausible usernames which use a different pattern than the real ones do. So like the real ones like use first initial, last name. So I used first name, last initial. Right? And I arranged for them to be put onto the company's website in non-visible text. It was less than 3 weeks before we were receiving spam from these email addresses. If you've got some better ways of getting those fake email addresses out there, by all means do that. Because the more effectively they're picked up into lists of email addresses that are bought and sold, the more useful they're going to be to you. Basically what you're doing is you're using this as a flag, because anybody sending those addresses can't be your friend.
It's called a honeypot address.
So how does Spam Assassin works? Spam Assassin uses a multi-test rating system. They look at email in a pretty big variety of ways. They can use blacklists. They can evaluate it for RFC correctness. They've got, keyword phrases, keyword matching type stuff, a whole bunch of different things. And each of these different aspects contribute to a positive or negative on the rating. Positive ratings are bad, negative ratings are good. And my experience is that Spam Assassin will cut out a lot of crap that will otherwise be delivered. And therefore, it's giving you who you want to have it. But it's like the antivirus stuff. I really noticed it this past August. There were when a group of people who were apparently doing, I'm not sure if it's botnet recruitment or some kind of fairly subtle phishing or something, started sending emails which had very clearly been tested against Spam Assassin, so that they all rate between minus 1.8 and minus 2.1. Which is, that's good. An email that comes in with that kind of rating is going to pass right through.
Did you rate those? There.
So, Spam Assassin can be beaten, and that's why you need some of these other techniques. This is where fail-to-ban comes in. Fail-to-ban can help in a number of ways. As I discussed, it monitors log files for signs of hostile activity. It uses IP tables to block hostile IP addresses for a configurable period of time. We use it to prevent the MUAs and the MDAs from brute force password hacking. You can also use it to protect against spam in certain ways, although the first one will always get through because you've got to have at least one thing show up in the log file before fail-to-ban can do its work. So one of the things that you can do is you can use, in XM, it would be blacklist_2. In your other mail servers, it's probably, wait, I take it back. Blacklist_2 is in Spam Assassin. I guess it's getting late. Blacklist_2 means that any email that comes in that is going to that user will be treated as spam, no matter what its rating is. So, like these folks that started up in August and have been, pounding my system on weekdays, not on weekends, ever since. They're using some of the old email addresses, some of the ones that have worked their way through the life cycle. People who are no longer there were no longer forwarding their mail, they're just gone. So when an email goes to one of those folks, it's spam. We catch it, block that IP address. If you're going to use Spam Assassin and you have, and one of the configuration options is, I want to save like the stuff that I accept but then filter out for a while, just on the very off chance that it might be a mistake in the filtering. Make sure that the automatic purge of that is working. It's something that I have seen not be working several times. And files can build up. You get a couple of gigabytes and thousands of files, and it's kind of a pain to get rid of it. Adjust the flag or the reject settings if you need to. The way Spam Assassin sort of works out of the box is it divides things into 3 categories. I think this is fine. I'm going to flag this as problematic, but I'm going to pass it through and forget it. I'm throwing this on the floor. That middle one is where you probably need some cooperation from the email client. At the site where I work, everyone's email client is set up so that those get filtered into their own special folder. And if somebody is missing an email, they know that, oh well, there's a very slim chance that it's there. I'll go look. It's extremely rare that happens. It's so rare that I can't actually think of a case. So here's some suggestions about the ways you might use fail to ban. If somebody fails a login on the MTA, they're trying to send mail, or the MDA, they're trying to receive mail, I block for a couple of hours after three failures from that IP address. Because conceivably it could be a real user who's getting a new system set up and they fumble fingered the password.
Whatever.
Yeah. If it's rejected spam, I block that IP address for a fairly long time. The other thing that I've begun to do with rejected spam is to block the surrounding 8-bit network for 1 to 2 hours.
Wow. Could go to 12 bits, it's much safer. That's a bad idea, by the way.
/24, not /8.
You sure you're doing /8 or /24?
I said 8 bits, it's /8 bits of
Okay.
network.
Okay.
The other
8-bit host address, 24net.
Thank you. I heard it the other way around.
I drop a lot of crap that way.
Somebody spams me, I'm gonna knock out the
/8? What is, there's 190/8s in actual use, so yeah. Take out the world.
No, I'm just, 254 host addresses. I just blocked those for a couple of hours. I'm dropping a lot of crap that way. It made a big difference in this group that started up in August, because they would be using, they'd be using this IP address, and then a little while later they'd start using this other IP address in the same group of 254. Helped a lot. And as you can see, my the length of time that I do that for is significantly less. You know, a real mail server, if it fails for 2 hours, is still going to deliver. Spammers, or maybe not. You know, they want to get that through, but there may be a limit.
Do they watch deliverable, whether or not it's been delivered?
No, typically. So, so one of the things you can send them 500 or 500. You can tell them to wait for an hour, and spammers won't wait. So that's another way to trick them out.
It's called gray listing.
Yeah.
Oh,
So if you send me one, you know, I talked about the idea that Spam Assassin puts things into categories. That middle category, the flagged email, if you send me 2 of those within 20 minutes, you're not my friend. Now, one of those could be bad luck. 2 of those, you're up to something, you're out of here. Again, it's a shorter period of time, but it's up. If there's no reverse lookup, I mean, none at all, I found that those almost always are trouble. Don't need those. Unroutable is, that's actually probably wrong. That should probably be 1 to 2. That is, if you're sending to a user address that I don't recognize at all, you know, not one of the ones that I used to have that was good, not one of my spam trap addresses, but you might have actually just misspelled it. That should be 1 to 2, not 6 to 10. So that's what I'm doing. There are other things you can do, but those things have helped a lot for me. So now we're going to talk about a very small number of things related to email clients.
Hey, Ken,
Yes.
For the server side,
Sure.
about requiring valid host name and doing a reverse DNS check. Or that was early on in the presentation.
You
Did I
can,
miss that? Yeah. Okay.
well, let's put it this way. If you want to send email, you definitely want that.
No, I'm saying block.
Oh, but in terms of blocking it,
Because probably 80% of our spam traffic gets blocked because there's no valid host name on email.
well, yeah, I mean, if there's no valid host name at all, yes, that I, oh, wait a minute, you mean on the incoming email, there's no host name?
Right. Blank.
Wow. Well, you know, different people are going to have different experiences.
So you don't see that a lot?
No, not a lot. I mean, I'm sure there have been a few.
If you block it for other reasons, you're not going to see it, are you?
Well, maybe not, but I do prowl through the
Right.
log files from
XM
time
and
to time.
postfix, they consider those unroutable and just ignore them by default, depending on how you have it set up.
Yeah,
So-
but I mean, you didn't mention doing that in the list and stuff, unless I missed.
Then that, and it's very well, and you know, if you say that's the default,
It might not.
then, you know, I never had to do that. You know, in my experience, it's going to be based, you know, on what I've needed to do. So, on the client side, if you're going to require people to use encrypted access, you'll probably have to figure out how that works with the clients that they're using and be able to help them set that up. And that also means that you'll need to figure out how do you add the certificate for your server to their list of approved certificates. That's probably a bigger deal if you're using one that's self-signed, but you need to, you'll probably need to be able to do it anyway. Gmail needs a real certificate. We mentioned that earlier. And you'll want to be able to help them set up filtering and filing a flagged email. Again, these are not directly related to running the server, but it's going to come up. And even if you're not the person who directly has to do it, if it's somebody else who does more desktop support or whatever, you'll probably need to teach that person. And finally, what are some alternatives? Well, there's Google Apps for Work, which is, I understand, is $50 per user per year. When the server that I'm taking care of was originally set up, that price was quite a bit less. And that was actually what he recommended. He said, you know what? We've just come from a really miserable experience of having somebody else run an email server for us. Let's hire some people who actually believe have some demonstrated expertise, and we won't have to fuss with it. The person who was the decision maker at the time said, "No, we're going to do it ourselves. We don't like continuing outgoing outlays. We would prefer to have at least
Incoming
ones that we
outlays.
can see.
Continuing incoming outlays.
We would prefer to have the kind of continuing outlays that we can't see. That would be neat." There are also some paid services available at Outlook.com. There are some Yahoo small business services. I have some experience with Google Apps for a small organization that got in when small organizations were still free, so it's grandfathered. Haven't used it very much, but certainly the mailing list stuff seems to work really nicely. And I have no experience with the other ones. I just point out that there are some alternatives out there, and there's nothing wrong with thinking really hard about using one of those alternatives rather than getting into this mess yourself.
My personal suggestion's not on your list, though.
What's your personal suggestion?
I would use pair.com for email.
PEAR?
Pair is in cojones, pair.
PAIR.
Okay. And that's it. If there are other questions, I would be happy to entertain those now, or comments, or
We did find that some of the mail clients do not work real well with Google Apps for mail.
For POP3 or for IMAP?
Right now.
Yeah. You can do an IMAP proxy setup. You can actually have an IMAP proxy and connect your clients to that. Some people prefer that. But yeah, Google's really particular about the clients that connect to it because
Yes.
the clients are spammers too. I've got one.
You think you could expand on using IPsec?
Man, IP set, it's awesome.
it's, well, my recollection is that it was actually fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
I found some examples and put together, a little script file to create the IP set. So it's a two-step process. The first thing that you do is you create what's called the IP set, which is this hash table that has all these networks in it. And where obviously the extreme case of the network is a single host. And then the second step is using that named IP set, you give your ordinary or your pretty ordinary IP tables command. Just like you would for IP tables, except you're referencing the IP set. Let's see.
So the source address or whatever is the name of the IP set?
No, you could create a namespace in IP set. and then you can just toss addresses on it. And then inside of IP tables, you just reference, I want IP set named Larry. And then you get all of those addresses suddenly. And that way you can continuously change your IP sets, but keep the IP tables rule the exact same.
Yeah.
And it's just basically IP tables getting a database that it can affect remotely without re-entering your rule or changing your chain source or order or
You don't
anything
have
like
to
that.
have new rule when blocks block one IP when you got thousands of them.
It also cleans up your IP tables rules, so it's not consuming as much memory. So it can be generally a good thing. The only other tool that he didn't mention was the recent command. IP tables in 2006 added on the recent capability. -- recent will create a fail to ban inside IP tables. And what it does is you can tell it, if anyone tries to connect for an SSH session 300 times in 60 seconds, ban them.
Good idea.
Good idea.
And it's a really, really convenient little thing because fail to ban catches people failing to log in. It doesn't catch people trying to open up 700 sessions at once. Okay? And sometimes fail to ban, if you don't have enough processing power, it can actually not catch up with the logs and not ban people fast enough. So
Right.
sometimes you have to take a different step.
Sure.
So
I unfortunately haven't been that big a target.
So thank you so much, for, Ken,
I
for your
may
super
actually
talk.
be able to go just a little further with that and see if I can get.
Okay, but I was just wanted to let you know, if you guys have any questions, I've done some big time web hosting work where spam is a different battle. It's more of a business battle. The support guys are going to come over and choke you if spam happens. And that's that face thing that he was kind of mentioning of. If the client can see Ken come in, then that's better than just paying some mystery provider off in La La Land. But in reality, stopping the spam kind of boils down to having your users behave properly. So in a good spam setup where you actually are storing the spam and the junk mail in a folder which allows you to create your filters from that spam. So for example, if everyone deletes their junk folder every day, you have no examples of what are supposed to be bad. And that's a big problem. So one of the neat features is in IMAP, you can actually create hidden folders. And so daily you can copy their spam message into a hidden .spam folder. And you can basically keep working against their spam list and see what they determine is bad. So having good users helps stop spam. And when you have massive domain names, I mean, I can remember getting Petrobras, which is Petro Brazil, as one of our customers. And we pulled in all of their operations in all of South America because we got them to a 1% spam level where they were at a 90% spam level. So just fixing spam for somebody can get you love, admiration, and business.
Money.
So,
Good referral.
okay, so back to your question about IPsec. I'm looking at this, script that I used to set this up. And it starts with, a text file that has a list of the addresses that I want to ban. And I do a create for the set name and specify that it's a network hash. And then I run through that list, and do, for each item in that list, IP set, add set name, IP address, where IP address in this case is actually, a network specification. So then once the set is created, it's IP, IP tables dash T filter dash I input dash set dash match set name source drop, one command, and it's few thousand addresses, for, the network addresses. So, there's a little learning curve, but once you're past that learning curve, it's going to seem very straightforward. Anything else?
Did you bring business cards for everybody that wants to hire you to come fix their spam problems?
Yes. And we can talk about my wrenches if you want. On the top,
That's a big one.
yeah, that's about a 24. That's the Trimo wrench. TRIMO is the sort of the company logo name. They used to be, I think, somewhere in New England.
Should have had a 6-inch wrench up there.
I do have a 6
5
incher
inch or
somewhere, and
whatever.
I've got another 14. So the top is 24, and the middle horizontally is 14, and the bottom is an 18. The top is a Trimo, and the middle is a rigid. That's a pretty good wrench. And the bottom is a no-name, but with an aluminum handle, so it's somewhat lighter, from Harbor Freight. And then the one vertically is another Trimo.
It's a different mechanism, it looks like.
It looks a little different, but functionally, it's pretty much the same.
Well, yeah, but they just avoided violating somebody else's design.
Yeah.
Well, technically, I think the top one's called a Stilson wrench. When the jaw moves, it's movable.
Well, the jaws move on, but the top.
But I think that's a spec for a monkey wrench, isn't it? that
All
the jaw has
of
to,
these move.
the jaw has
The
to
top
move.
jaw moves.
That's part of
Not
it.
this way, I mean, this way, side to side. There's there's a spring in there that allows the top jaw to move tighter.
Oh, I see what you're getting at. So when you're doing this number,
Right,
you will release.
yes, yes.
My dad used to call them Stilson wrench.
Yeah,
That still sounds like what I thought you were talking about.
yeah.
Where they,
And basically, the spring was designed that, so when you're backing up for another bite, the spring will relieve the pressure and you can easily back it up without binding. Like on a monkey wrench, you have to loosen it with the wheel, with the adjuster. For a lot of times you get another bite, where a Stilson wrench, the spring will release when you back up.
I think that depends on the quality of the monkey wrench you're using. I think that depends on the quality of the monkey wrench. I think that.
No, the monkey wrench is fixed, the Stilson has a spring in it, at least that's what my dad used to say.
No, I think it's that was the original design concept of monkey wrenches, was that the jaw would be floppy so that it would
Well,
ratchet.
the bottom one isn't floppy either.
No, the bottom one isn't, the bottom one looks pretty fixed.
Yeah, but in the top one, I kind of recognize, I think I got one that looks like that in my old tool trunk.
The bottom and the second to bottom ones are the same, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they
Yes.
do have a little bit of give in them, but you're right, both, the one on the side and the one on the top do have, spring mechanisms. That one on the top is the second one like that I have.
And
At some point-
you can tell because the jaw is angled a little bit. It's angled a little bit. In other words, here's the bar and here's the jaw. Whereas a monkey wrench is straight because it doesn't move. A Stilson wrench is angled a little bit because when you back up, the spring will allow it to slip.
This is wonderfully off topic, but
Hey, we're a techie group. We can specify what kind of-
Come on.
Still technology.
So the top one, that's actually the second one like that I've had. There's a guy who does a lot of the work on my house, that I don't do myself. And at one point, he needed to move a radiator. It broke.
And wrong man, probably.
Well, no, it was just stuck real hard, and he's, big and strong. So at one point we went around and we opened up all of the shutoff valves on the 11 radiators. We either got them open or we destroyed them, one or the other. Most of them we got open. But that in some cases involved this 48-inch wrench. Some of that stuff was in there pretty hard. All right.
okay, so if you could open up Super Web Browser, Superkin. Hey, there you go. If you go to the resources there.
Does it tell us what a monkey wrench is?
No, it will not.
Oh.
You go down.
No, I'm not volunteering to
Go
fix
down
that.
to presentations there.
Mhm.
It's over there on the left if you want to get it. There you go. I've just started to add some here, but I added a whole bunch of presentations to the Linux users website. So if you want to, also, if you could open a new tab and go to stllinux.org. Frickin'.
Does that link take you there?
Yeah, I just started putting presentations in, but I'm having trouble finding some for some months.
Okay, well, I can send you,
If you go ahead and go to remove everything on that after the path there in the URL. There we go. Take meeting notes out of there. There you go. So they're on the right hand side there, they're linked in from the talk. So there's your fail to ban presentation.
all right, well, then, you know.
And I
I have some more I can send you.
I need your Mint presentation.
And this one too, Bacula.
Bacula, okay. No, I did backups.
Right, but next to it is Bacula.
We did a double presentation that night, didn't we?
Mhm.
Yeah, I need that one. I've slept since then.
Okay.
Gosh, I hope so.
Yes, and I think we need presentations from Lee and from,
Where you store?
huh?
Where you store?
They're small. I'm putting them on the server. We've got like a couple gig free. I
These are
think.
slideshows, right? Mhm. We're putting the videos going on the YouTube, aren't
It's unplugged.
These are slideshows, not videos.
Those are just PDFs.
PDF.
Just PDFs.
Yeah.
There's 14 gig free. I think we can handle a couple hundred meg of PDFs.
Oh, yeah.
How many free?
I'm sorry?
You said 14?
14?
What did you clean some stuff up?
No? Stan?
I don't remember being that much free. That's nice.
I can make some space.
Well, all we have to do is get some ways to set up and push them out. So we got like 400, 500, or 600 gig at exterior.
Okay. On the wonderful spam topic, does anyone do any special practices of their own to deal with spam? Do you hide your email address? Do you not sign up for things?
Yeah, if somebody sends me spam, I blacklist their IP. And then the server can no longer access our system. I got about 80% of Hotmail in there. And it's, I think like last I looked, I was getting up close to 160,000 entries.
Does anyone here run any type of internal email service for their business?
Well, no. I mean, if somebody complains, I'll look up the email address.
You do? And what's your magic recipe? Hire Ken?
No, mainly we use Spam Assassin with the, we actually have mailboxes set up that users can dump spam in to train the base filters,
Yeah.
and they work quite well.
Yeah. Without training,
Plus, we're
you're not
also
going to get anywhere.
experimenting with Google Mail as well.
Mhm.
It's working pretty well, except that's some of the clients don't like it.
Clients and customers need to be persuaded from time to time. A lot like a pipe wrench needs to persuade a stuck pipe.
And why don't the clients like it?
It's work. Change. Too little change is war. Too much change is war.
It worked just fine before, apart from getting all that spam.
Yeah.
So why do you want to make me do all
I
this
don't remember exactly.
silly stuff?
Just
So it's just
didn't
too
play
complicated.
well with other. I had IMAP, just trying IMAP before stuff. Local ones as well as.
All the boot tests and stuff.
So
I
another,
believe it was an older time.
so how many of you guys maintain servers for yourselves or others? Okay. What do you do about your servers that want to send email about failed logins and other things? Do you actually take the time to set up the email accounts for those servers? So for example, root at localhost coming to you every day?
Or webmaster or something like that.
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand.
Do you have the root account? Do you have an actual email address configured for the root account to mail to?
Of course.
Yes,
And
don't get very much.
well, what can happen over time though is that users will continuously delete the emails about failed logins or this server has so much drive space full. It's like getting Nagios emails. And what can happen is over time they can delete them, and at some point they can throw them all into the spam training folder.
Oh,
And they can ruin your day.
you need to train your
So
people.
if your Nagios emails are trained as spam, then it can really ruin your day. So always take time and whitelist your own services so that stupid users don't hurt you.
I know that training users to send stuff to the spam bucket instead of to trash is very important. You know, stuff that really is spam, they need to send it to the spam, you know, flag it as spam instead of just trashing it. I've had people who have a little trouble catching up.
Well, they're used to the old days whenever email storage space was expensive, and they get delete happy. I think I've got 30 gigabytes.
Well, this is where
here.
they should be training the spam filter, though. They
got 31 gigabytes of email on this particular account. So you don't have to delete things.
Right. I don't.
Unless you want to use Outlook for email file.
I'm sorry?
Unless you want to use Outlook for email file.
It has problems with the big.
Yeah, it used to choke anything over 2 gig. Now it'll go up to about 12 to 14. I think.
How much am I using?
And as always, Ken, we got you a penguin for talking.
Oh, looky there. Yay, now you got a stack one to go with
Sorry?
your,
Did you mention
Visual
Nagios?
one.
This is my new Nagios server. 4.08.
There you go. And Ken, that has the bonus of being able to use to clean dusty screens with the back, okay?
Soft back.
Is that the one you used to clean the lens with?
At home, yes, but not.
What's that strap on the bottom
I
for?
the camera.
How do you put down?
Is that strap on or something, or is that the feet? Yeah, it's like it can strap onto your wrist or something.
Well, he hasn't sent me a bill yet. I don't know about that.
Finger puppet.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go, you put your.
Well,
Oh, my.
I did that here a couple months ago with wireless adapter and jumped on the public here.
Anytime I get a
All needed was
spam,
powerful.
I just send it
Got the
to
HDMI
forward
projector.
abuse at 101.com.
So,
I practically never get any spam anymore. I did it for a long time.
Why can't you tell them, I guess, man?
I really
does anyone else have any? Or do you use Centron for anything? Do you use Centron yet?
Sensor on?
Centron, the French project that wraps Nagios, makes it multi-homed?
Don't need all that.
All right.
That was my presentation. Yeah, distributed Nagios, hierarchical Nagios.
I'm sorry?
Distributed / hierarchical Nagios.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get video of it?
Yeah, it's online.
Excellent. Okay.
If you didn't hear Don's comment, he said, oh, go ahead. Repeat it.
What was that?
Repeat your comment.
Oh, I just said, all I do on mine is if I get a spam
Mhm.
or something like that, I forward it to abuse at oneandone.com.
Right. And
I practically never get any spam anymore.
yeah. And so if you ever have trouble contacting a ISP or whatever to try to get off their list of stuff, you look for the Regional Network Operators Group. So for the US, it's North American Network Operators Group, which is NANOC. I've been a member for quite a while.
And on this list, all you have to do is say, please, somebody from this company contact me offline, and they'll normally reach out to you. So you'll have pretty much everyone that does any networking is on the list, and you can just get people offline to discuss issues and resolve issues. Because normally these people don't want to look bad. They're just, nerds themselves, but the corporate overlords may have made it difficult for you to get to them. So it's basically an out of band, come and talk to me, because abuse at Comcast.net might actually go to the legal department and not to the network operators. Well, does anyone have anything else to discuss, Don?
Question about Sorbs. I managed to get an account at Sorbs, and I tried getting the site that we have trouble with delisted, and it's like they have server problems at Sorbs, so that when I tried to submit my request, the page gave a server error.
And that's where the network operator group, you can basically say, hey, somebody contact me offline, I'm having a problem with your form. And it's a nice way of proffering yourself up there, saying, hey, contact me, and they reach out to you, and that way you're not, they're protecting their company's brand by making you not ask a second or third time.
What's the name of the organization again?
So for US, it's NANOG.
NANOG.
And it's just a mailing list. And there's European, there's Asian, there's all kinds of network operator group.
Okay.
And anything you want, these are the groups to just basically join and track.
Okay.
So for example, the SSL vulnerability, SSL 3.0 issue was pushed onto NANOG within seconds of it being, announced.
Has everyone updated their Debian servers?
I'm sorry?
Has everyone updated their Debian servers with the new OpenSSL?
You can wait quite a while with updating your Debian servers just so you can feel like all the other distributions. Red Hat and Red Hat SUSE and a couple other distros have yet to get the bash completely patched.
Oh, well, actually, I was talking about Poodle.
No, that too. But SID is the only thing that is fully patched for all the bash stuff.
Right, but I mean, Poodle is patched even for